The sky over New York City darkened as an ominous fleet of Zephyran ships blocked out the sun, casting long shadows over the streets. Panic erupted below as sirens wailed, and people streamed out of buildings, their faces painted with fear and confusion. Among the chaos, a young hacker named Mia stood frozen, her heart racing as she stared at the alien ships hovering silently above. Mia had always been a tech enthusiast, her life spent immersed in lines of code and virtual worlds. Today, however, the digital realm felt distant and irrelevant. The Zephyrans, renowned across the galaxy for their ruthlessness, had chosen Earth as their next conquest. A live news broadcast flickered on her phone, showing images of destruction in other cities, fires raging, buildings crumbling, and the desperate screams of civilians caught in the onslaught. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, breaking her trance. It was a message from her best friend, Jake. *Mia, we need you. Meet us at the hideout. The urgency in his words jolted her into action. She dashed through the streets, dodging debris and shattered glass, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. At the hideout, a cramped basement filled with makeshift furniture and flickering screens, Maya found Jake and a small group of friends gathered around a laptop. They were strategizing, voices hushed but intense. Captain Rice, a seasoned soldier with years of experience, stood at the center of the group, his expression grim. "Everyone's in a panic," Rice said, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. "But we can't let fear dictate our response. We need to organize a counterattack, something they won't expect." Mia's heart sank. The alien technology was far superior to anything humanity had, but there was something inside her, a flicker of defiance. What if we could hack their systems? Disrupt their communications? She suggested, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. Reyes turned to her, eyes narrowing. "You think you can get past their firewalls? We have no idea how advanced their technology is." "I've seen some of their code," Maya replied, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "If we can find a way to tap into their network, we might be able to turn their own technology against them." Reyes considered her words, glancing at the others. "We'll need a plan. We can't waste time. They're regrouping and organizing. If we don't act now, we'll lose our chance." The team quickly devised a strategy. Maya would attempt to infiltrate the Zephyran communication network from a remote location, while Reyes and the others focused on guerrilla tactics to disrupt the alien forces. They knew the risks were immense, but fear of the Zephyrans paled in comparison to the fear of inaction. As night fell, the streets buzzed with energy, a mix of anxiety and determination. Mia set up her equipment in an abandoned building near the city center, surrounded by the hum of generators and the flickering light of her screens. With every keystroke, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. In her mind, she replayed the videos she had watched of the Zephyran ships gliding effortlessly through the air. Each clip reminded her of the aliens' arrogance. They believed humanity would flee, cowering in fear, but they were about to learn a lesson in resilience. With a deep breath, Mia connected to the Zephyran network. Lines of alien code flashed before her eyes, a maze of complexity. She felt a surge of exhilaration. This was her moment. She would not let humanity down. As she began to penetrate their systems, alarms blared in the distance, signaling that the invasion had truly begun. But for Mia, the fight was just starting. Mia's fingers danced over the keyboard as she maneuvered through the Zephyran network. Each line of code pulsed like a heartbeat, alive and threatening. The alarms blared louder, echoing through the streets, but Mia focused, pushing aside her rising anxiety. She had to be fast. As she worked, a deep rumble shook the building, causing dust to cascade from the ceiling. She knew the Zephyrans were already deploying ground forces. Meanwhile, outside, Captain Rice led a group of volunteers armed with makeshift weapons, baseball bats, crowbars, and whatever else they could scavenge. They moved like shadows through the wreckage of the city, their adrenaline masking the fear gripping their hearts. The sight of the towering Zephyran mechs sent shivers down their spines, but the resolve in Reyes's eyes ignited their courage. "Stick together," Reyes called, his voice steady. "We're not just fighting for ourselves, but for everyone who can't. Let's give them a reason to remember us." With a loud crash, a Zephyran mech landed nearby, its metallic form gleaming under the streetlights. Its sensors scanned the area, and Reyes motioned for his group to hide behind a car. They watched in horror as the mech unleashed a devastating energy blast, vaporizing a nearby building. "Now," Reyes shouted, and they charged, using the element of surprise. They hurled makeshift explosives, Molotov cocktails filled with gasoline. At the mech, one struck true, shattering against its leg and igniting in flames. The mech stumbled, momentarily thrown off balance. Mia, still focused on her screen, felt the connection solidify. She had managed to isolate a communication channel, a critical breach. Just then, her laptop pinged, a message from Jake, sent from the street where he and others were taking cover. Asterisk. "They're pushing through the west side. We need that intel now." Asterisk. With urgency, Mia tapped into the alien communication feed, listening in as Zephyran officers reported troop movements. She fed the information to Reyes's team through a secure line. "They're regrouping near 5th Avenue. You'll have a clear shot." Reyes relayed the message to his group, who prepared to flank the approaching Zephyran soldiers. Just as they made their move, the ground shook again. A massive Zephyran dropship hovered above, deploying troops. The team was outnumbered, but the fire in their hearts pushed them forward. "Remember what we're fighting for," Reyes yelled, rallying the group. They engaged in fierce combat, using every ounce of their strength and ingenuity. Mia watched from her makeshift command center, her heart racing as she monitored the live feed. Come on," she muttered, urging her fingers to fly faster across the keyboard. The Zephyrans were adapting quickly, countering her attempts to disrupt their systems. She had to find a way to create chaos in their ranks. If they couldn't communicate effectively, they would be vulnerable. Suddenly, an alert flashed across her screen. Asterisk system. Intrusion. DETCCED asterisk. Panic gripped her. They were onto her. Just then, a notification pinged, revealing a hidden vulnerability in their network. "Got it," she exclaimed, her heart pounding as she exploited the breach, creating a cascading failure within the Zephyran systems. As communication links faltered among the alien troops, confusion erupted on the battlefield. Reyes seized the moment, pushing his team forward with renewed fervor. "Now's our chance. Press the attack." The humans fought with an intensity fueled by desperation and hope, realizing they could disrupt the once invincible invaders. Amidst the chaos, Maya felt a shift. Their fight was becoming more than survival. It was a declaration of resilience. They were not fleeing. They were standing their ground. As she continued to hack and disrupt, Mia smiled, feeling a connection with the fighters outside. They were the heartbeat of humanity, and together they would show the Zephyrans the true meaning of defiance. The sounds of battle echoed through the streets as Mia's fingers flew over the keyboard, her mind racing with the possibilities. The chaos outside was a visceral reminder of what was at stake: families, homes, and their very way of life. As the alien forces struggled to regain control, she focused on a new objective: finding a way to establish communication with any potential allies within the Zephyran ranks. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos, a Zephyran ship soared above the fray, its sleek exterior glinting in the fading daylight. Inside, Commander Varric, a hardened strategist, paced the control room. The battle reports flooding in were chaotic and troubling. Confusion reigned among his troops, and he sensed the tide was turning against them. His officers, usually unwavering, were now visibly shaken. "Sir, we're losing communication with the ground units," one officer reported, his voice strained. "It appears the humans have somehow compromised our systems. Then we must regain control. Varric snapped, his frustration boiling over. If they think they can defy us, they are gravely mistaken. Prepare a tactical response. Just then, a soft voice interrupted. Commander Varric, I have a proposal. It was Zora, a skilled Zephyran technician who had quietly observed the human resistance. For months, she had been disturbed by the ruthlessness of their invasion. But now, witnessing the humans fight for survival had stirred something deep within her. Varric's gaze shifted sharply. You? What could you possibly offer? I know their systems, she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil. If we can leverage their desperation against them, we might turn this battle around. But we must act quickly before they exploit our weaknesses further. Varric narrowed his eyes, weighing her suggestion. And why should I trust you? Because I have seen what they are capable of, Zara replied, her voice firm. If you insist on pushing for annihilation, they will only grow stronger. You have already lost a significant portion of your forces. Allow me to help you see this differently. Her words struck a chord, awakening Varric's internal conflict. He had always been a fierce proponent of Zephyran's superiority, but seeing their forces falter against what he had dismissed as primitive resistance began to shift his perspective. Back on the ground, Mia's heart raced as she discovered an encrypted message from a Zephyran officer contemplating defection. She had just enough time to respond before her connection flickered. If there are dissenters among them, this could change everything, she thought, quickly drafting a message. Zara, I need you to listen, she typed. There's a chance we can work together. If you can get this message to the officer, we can form a coalition of sorts. The humans and the sympathetic among your ranks can fight back together. Zara received the message through a secure channel, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. She quickly relayed the information to Varric, who was skeptical but intrigued. If this human is telling the truth, we could disrupt their morale even further. As the conflict raged on, Zara made her way to the dropship. With Varric's hesitant approval, she donned a disguise and prepared to make contact with the defecting officer. It was a risky move, but she believed in the potential for change. Back on the ground, Reyes's team continued to fight, emboldened by the disruptions Maya was causing. We need to push forward, he shouted, rallying the group as they moved through the wreckage. In that moment of chaos, the unexpected alliance began to take shape. Zara met with the Zephyran officer, revealing her plan to infiltrate their ranks and undermine the command structure. Meanwhile, Mia continued to hack away, drawing on her newfound connection with Zara, who was now her voice within the enemy camp. As the first rays of dawn broke through the smoke, a glimmer of hope illuminated the battlefield. Humanity was not merely resisting. They were igniting a spark of rebellion. Together, humans and Zephyran dissenters could change the course of this war, and perhaps forge a new path forward. As dawn broke over the ravaged city, the once calm skyline now bore the scars of battle, smoke billowing from crumbling buildings, remnants of humanity's struggle against their alien invaders. Mia, still at her makeshift command center, felt a renewed sense of urgency. Zara's successful communication with the defecting officer had opened a crucial window of opportunity. Come on, Mia muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard as she analyzed the incoming data streams. The chaos had disrupted Zephyran communications even further, creating a web of confusion among their ranks. She needed to capitalize on that. Meanwhile, Captain Rice and his team regrouped in an abandoned subway station, using the underground tunnels to evade detection. Rice looked around at the faces of his comrades, determination etched into their expressions despite the exhaustion weighing heavily on them. We're going to hit them where it hurts, he declared, his voice firm. With the intel Mia has provided, we'll strike a key command center and disrupt their operations even more. Are you sure about this? Jake asked, concern flickering in his eyes. What if it backfires? Reyes met his gaze, unwavering. We've come too far to back down now. If we can cut their command structure, we can create chaos and buy ourselves more time. With a plan in place, the team prepared for their bold offensive. Mia, overhearing their conversation through her secure channel, felt a surge of pride. She was no longer just a hacker. She was part of something larger, a movement determined to reclaim their home. At the Zephyran Command Center, tension was palpable. Varric stood with Zara, who had been instrumental in relaying the defecting officer's intelligence. "You think these humans will truly work with us?" he asked, skepticism lacing his tone. Zara nodded, her resolve unwavering. "They are not what we expected. They fight with the ferocity of those who have nothing left to lose. If we don't act now, we will lose everything." With Zara's guidance, they began implementing a strategy to create a rift within the Zephyran command. Varric reluctantly authorized a series of calculated miscommunications aimed at sending their troops into disarray. Meanwhile, Mia coordinated with Zara, providing real-time updates on human movements and feeding false intelligence to confuse the Zephyrans further. As Reyes and his team made their way through the tunnels, Maya remained connected to them, providing guidance and strategic insights. "You're approaching the command center," she whispered into their earpieces, her voice steady. "Stay low, and remember, the moment you engage, the element of surprise is your greatest weapon." The group emerged from the tunnels, crouching behind the remnants of a collapsed building, the command center looming ahead, illuminated by flickering lights. Reyes signaled for silence, the weight of their mission settling in. "On my mark," he breathed, his heart pounding in anticipation. 3, 2, 1, go. They surged forward, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Reyes led the charge, aiming for the entrance, while Jake and the others provided cover. The air crackled with tension as they breached the doorway, catching the Zephyran guards off guard. "Human intruders," one of the guards shouted, scrambling for his weapon. But before he could react, Reyes lunged, tackling him to the ground. Inside, the command center was a maze of technology, alien interfaces humming with activity. Mia's voice guided them through the chaos. "You need to reach the main console and disable their communications. It's located at the far end of the room." They fought fiercely, dodging laser blasts and returning fire. Amid the chaos, they reached the console, and Reyes worked quickly, his hands flying over the alien interface, aided by Mia's instructions. Suddenly, the entire building shook as Zara activated a secondary protocol from her position within the Zephyran ranks, sending a wave of disinformation through their systems. "Now," Mia urged, "you have to disable their communications before they realize what's happening." With a final keystroke, Reyes hit the command, and the lights flickered ominously. Outside, the Zephyran troops faltered, their commands disrupted. Confusion spread like wildfire as the humans seized the opportunity, pushing back against the once unstoppable invaders. The tide was turning. As chaos reigned within the command center, the sense of victory surged among the humans. They were no longer mere survivors. They were warriors, defying the odds and reclaiming their city. As the command center erupted in chaos, Maya felt a surge of exhilaration. The disarray she had helped create among the Zephyran ranks was palpable. Each second counted, and the humans were determined to seize their chance. "Keep pushing forward," she urged through the comms, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "You're doing great." Reyes's team fought fiercely, pushing deeper into the command center. The sounds of skirmishes reverberated off the metallic walls, but there was something invigorating about their resolve. They were no longer just a group of terrified civilians. They had become a symbol of resistance, fighting against overwhelming odds. Outside, the spirit of the people was equally inspiring. News of the humans' fight began to spread like wildfire, igniting a fire of hope in hearts everywhere. Social media channels lit up with footage of civilians resisting the invasion, armed with whatever they could find. Makeshift weapons, gardening tools, and even kitchen utensils turned into tools of rebellion. In the streets of Paris, a group of artists began painting murals depicting the struggle, their vibrant colors contrasting sharply with the gray devastation around them. In Tokyo, School children organized makeshift barricades, standing guard to protect their neighborhoods. The message was clear. Humanity would not be silenced or subdued. Back in the command center, Rais reached the main console, working to disable the remaining Zephyran systems. "We need to take control of their communications," he said, glancing at Jake, who was panting beside him. "If we can broadcast a message to the rest of the world, we can unite everyone against them." "Got it," Jake replied, his fingers dancing over the controls, following Mia's instructions. "I'm patching in the feed now. We'll let everyone know that we're not alone in this fight." As they worked, an unexpected voice came through the comms. "Mia, this is Zara. I've been feeding you intel from inside the Zephyran ranks. Varric is struggling to maintain control, and I think he might be willing to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Rais raised an eyebrow, glancing at the screen where the chaos outside played out. "We can't trust them. We're winning now." "Perhaps," Zora replied, urgency in her tone. "But if we can secure a ceasefire, we might be able to prevent further bloodshed. The Zephyrans have their own dissenters. If we can unite our forces, we could change the future for both sides." Mia considered the weight of Zara's words. "If we reach out now, we could foster understanding. But we have to make sure the humans are safe first." "Then let's do it," Rais said, determination hardening his resolve. "Once we establish control here, we'll send out the message, and we'll see if we can broker a truce." Jake finished the setup, and as the screen lit up with their feed, Rais took a deep breath. "This is Captain Rais, speaking on behalf of the United Human Forces. We will not back down. We will not flee. We are fighting for our survival, our families, and our future." Mina's heart raced as she felt the weight of those words. She had witnessed the spirit of humanity transform from fear to defiance, and now it was manifesting on screens around the world. "We are not alone," she echoed, feeling a connection to every person fighting back. "Together, we are stronger than any invader." As the message broadcasted, people around the globe rallied in response, gathering in their communities, standing firm against the Zephyran threat. Social media exploded with hashtags like #WestEndTogether and #HumanityResists, uniting voices from every corner of the planet. Back in the command center, the tide of battle shifted dramatically. The Zephyran forces, now facing resistance from within, began to falter as doubt spread among their ranks. Varric, witnessing the growing unrest, realized he could not ignore the dissent. Amidst the chaos, a glimmer of hope began to take root. The message was clear. Humanity would rise to the challenge, and the spirit of resilience burned brighter than ever. Together, they would forge a new future, not just for themselves, but for a universe that could learn from their struggle. Inside the Zephyran command ship, Commander Varric surveyed the chaos unfolding on the screens around him. Reports of troop disarray flooded in as discontent rippled through the ranks. The message broadcasted by Captain Rais had sparked something unforeseen, a challenge to their authority that Varric had never anticipated. He had always viewed humans as primitive and weak, but their tenacity was shaking his convictions. "Sir," one of his officers spoke hesitantly, "we're receiving reports of defections within our ranks. Several units are questioning orders, and the morale is plummeting." Varric clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. How could this happen? We are an advanced species. They are nothing but insects. His voice echoed through the command chamber, filled with both anger and confusion. "Perhaps they are not as weak as we thought," Zora interjected, stepping forward. "Their fight is driven by desperation and a fierce loyalty to each other. If we do not act, we risk losing not only this battle but the entire campaign." "What do you propose?" Varric shot back, his skepticism still evident. Zara had gained his respect, but he struggled to accept her counsel fully. "Instead of pushing for annihilation, we can consider an alternative approach, open channels for negotiation. If we can communicate with the human leaders, we might be able to reach an agreement that benefits both sides," Zara urged, her eyes fierce with conviction. Varric hesitated. He was a warrior at heart, but he also understood the importance of strategy. The Zephyrans had faced defeat before, but this was different. They were fighting a war against a people who had found their voice, and that voice was growing louder. If we pursue peace, how do we ensure our safety? How can we trust them not to strike at our weakest moment? Varric's voice was a mix of doubt and intrigue. Zara leaned closer, her expression earnest. We can establish terms that guarantee both sides' safety. Use this opportunity to form an alliance. If we work together, we can create a future that avoids further bloodshed. While Varric mulled over Zara's words, the command ship trembled as another message from the surface came through. Commander, the humans are advancing toward our main power grid. They're attempting to cut off our energy supply. Prepare for defensive maneuvers. Varric barked, but the urgency in his voice was tinged with uncertainty. The humans were proving to be resourceful, and every moment spent hesitating felt like a mistake. Meanwhile, on the ground, Maya monitored the situation through her laptop, her heart racing. Rise, they're getting ready to defend their power grid. We need to act fast before they fortify their position. Rise nodded, sweat dripping down his brow. We can't let them regroup. We need to keep the pressure on and push forward. As they pressed on, a sudden thought struck Mia. Wait, what if we can use Zora's connection to buy us time? If Varric is considering negotiation, we can send a message proposing a temporary ceasefire while we regroup. Reyes's eyes widened with realization. That could work. We need to make them see we're not just fighters. We're people trying to protect our homes. Mia quickly composed a message for Zara, outlining the proposal. If Varric agrees, we might be able to create a moment of peace, a chance to discuss terms without fear of immediate attack. Zara received the message, her heart pounding with hope. She relayed the proposal to Varric, who sat in silence for a moment, weighing the risks. A ceasefire could offer us a tactical advantage. It would allow us to regroup as well. But are we ready to trust them? Sometimes trust is born from necessity, Zara replied, her voice steady. If we don't take this chance, we risk everything we've built. If we can demonstrate a willingness to engage, we might avert total annihilation. Varric stared at the chaos on the screens, the disarray among his troops reflecting a critical turning point. Very well. Initiate a ceasefire. Let's see if the humans are willing to engage in diplomacy. As the command was given, the battlefield fell into an uneasy silence. Both sides, exhausted and wary, awaited the next move. The opportunity for dialogue hung in the air like a fragile thread, but it was a thread worth grasping. Humanity's fight was evolving into something greater, a chance to reshape their destiny. The battlefield stood still, an eerie quiet replacing the cacophony of war. Soldiers from both sides exchanged cautious glances, each one bracing for the unknown. Reyes's team huddled together, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. What now? Jake asked, his brow furrowed. Mia, still connected through her laptop, felt the weight of the moment. We wait for Zora's signal. If Varric is serious about this ceasefire, we need to be prepared to negotiate. This could be our chance to find common ground. On the Zephyran side, Commander Varric felt a mixture of relief and anxiety as he surveyed the scene. Have our troops lower their weapons, he commanded, his voice steady. We cannot show weakness, but we must allow for dialogue. Zara stood beside him, her heart racing with the gravity of the situation. It's now or never. We need to send a clear message that we are willing to talk. She turned to the communications officer. Prepare a broadcast. Let the humans know we are open to negotiation. As the signal was sent, both sides awaited a response, the silence thick with tension. Maya felt a shiver of anticipation. They're sending a message to us, she said, her eyes glued to her screen. I'll patch it through. Varric's image flickered to life on a monitor set up for the humans. This is Commander Varric of the Zephyran fleet. We are willing to discuss terms for a ceasefire. If you are open to dialogue, step forward. Reyes, heart pounding, stepped up to the front line. flanked by Mia's voice guiding him. "This is Captain Rice representing the human forces. We accept your offer for negotiation, but we must first ensure the safety of our people." Varric nodded, appreciating the directness. "Agreed. Let us meet in the no-man's land between our lines." Unarmed, as a gesture of good faith, Rice exchanged glances with his team, weighing the risk. "I'll go, but we need to maintain our defenses. If anything feels off, we withdraw immediately." As Rice prepared to meet Varric, the mood shifted. Hope began to blossom amidst the uncertainty. Soldiers on both sides lowered their weapons, though many remained tense, ready for any sudden movements. Rice stepped into the designated area, his heart racing. He was flanked by Zara, who had stepped away from the Zephyran command. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice sincere. "We have an opportunity to change the course of this conflict." "I hope so," Rice replied, eyeing Varric as he approached, his presence commanding and imposing. "This war has caused enough suffering, if we can find a way to coexist." "Coexist?" Varric interjected, skepticism evident. "You humans are fiercely protective of your kind, but your resolve has impressed me. I have seen your tenacity. Perhaps we are not as different as I once believed." "Then let's talk terms," Rice urged, sensing a flicker of possibility. "What if we could agree on shared resources, a halt to hostilities, at least long enough to address the damage on both sides?" Varric considered the proposition. "Our objectives have always been to expand our reach. But if we could establish a new paradigm, one where we share rather than conquer, it would be worth considering. I am willing to negotiate on one condition." Reyes's heart raced. "And that is?" "That we both agree to an open dialogue moving forward, a council of sorts, humans and Zephyrans together, to ensure peace and address grievances before they escalate into violence." Varric proposed, his tone serious. Reyes exchanged a glance with Zara, then nodded slowly. "It's a start, but we need a guarantee that the hostilities will cease immediately and that we can bring representatives from both sides to this council." "Agreed," Varric replied, extending his hand. "Let this be the beginning of a new chapter." As Reyes shook Varric's hand, a wave of relief washed over him. They had taken the first step toward peace, an alliance born out of necessity rather than conquest. The battlefield, once a place of conflict, now held the promise of hope. Mia, watching from her command center, felt a surge of emotion. "We did it," she whispered, her heart swelling. The spirit of humanity had triumphed not through brute force, but through resilience and the willingness to reach across the divide. The first fragile threads of peace were woven into the fabric of their future, and for the first time, it felt as though a shared destiny was within their grasp. The air was thick with anticipation as Captain Reyes returned to his team, a mixture of hope and disbelief in his eyes. "We've done it," he announced, his voice steady but charged with emotion. "Varric and I have agreed to a ceasefire and a council to discuss our future." Cheers erupted among the humans, but Maya felt a twinge of caution. "This is just the beginning," she reminded them. "We need to stay vigilant. A lot can change in negotiations." Reyes nodded, understanding the gravity of their situation. "We'll establish a perimeter to keep watch while we organize our representatives. Zara will be our liaison." He turned to Zara, who stood proudly beside him. "With your help, we'll ensure this is a fair process." Meanwhile, in the Zephyran command center, Varric addressed his officers, who looked skeptical. "We have made a significant concession, and we must treat this opportunity with care. The humans have shown unexpected resilience, and we could benefit from their perspective." "Sir, are we truly considering an alliance?" one officer questioned, disbelief evident in his tone. "They're still our enemies." Varric held up a hand, silencing the dissent. "This is not about weakness, it's about survival. We are in a precarious position, and we must adapt. A council may offer us insights we have overlooked." As the days passed, Both sides began preparing for the inaugural council meeting. Mia worked tirelessly, gathering insights from humans across the globe, while Zara compiled information on the Zephyrins. The aim was to create a balanced foundation for discussions, ensuring that both sides had a voice. On the day of the council, a neutral zone was established in the heart of the city, marked by a massive tent adorned with flags from both sides. Representatives, including Rais, Zara, and key leaders from each faction, gathered in a tense but hopeful atmosphere. Mia and Varric entered together, the room filled with cautious curiosity. "Today is not just about us," Rais began, addressing the assembly. "It's about our futures. We stand at a crossroads where we can choose either conflict or cooperation." Varric followed suit, his voice resonating with authority. "We must acknowledge our differences, but also our shared goals. The universe is vast, and our survival depends on our ability to adapt and work together." The discussions began, covering vital topics: resource sharing, mutual protection agreements, and establishing a framework for future interactions. There were moments of tension and disagreement, but the spirit of collaboration gradually emerged. Each representative expressed their hopes and fears, forging a connection that transcended the battlefield. As the meeting progressed, a breakthrough occurred. "What if we create joint teams for rebuilding efforts?" Zara suggested. "We can learn from each other's technologies and cultures, creating something far greater than we could alone." Rais looked around the room, sensing the shift in energy. "That's a powerful idea. We can address the damage done to our cities and find common ground." After hours of discussion, a consensus was reached. They drafted a preliminary agreement that outlined shared responsibilities, protections, and a commitment to dialogue. It was a monumental step forward, one born from the ashes of war. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, Rais and Varric stood together outside the tent. "We have begun to change the narrative," Varric remarked, his tone reflective. "This will not be easy, but we have taken the first step toward understanding." Rais nodded, a sense of hope swelling in his chest. "This is just the beginning. Together, we can forge a future where both our peoples thrive." As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, a new chapter unfolded, one where humanity and the Zephyrins chose collaboration over conflict. They had weathered the storm of war and emerged with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to explore the vast potential of their shared existence. In that moment, both sides understood that true strength lay not in dominance, but in unity. The dawn of a new era had arrived, and with it, the promise of a brighter tomorrow.